When my son told me he was marrying my best friend, I thought God was giving me a second chance at family. That was the first thought that crossed my mind that morning. It was raining, that quiet, silver kind of rain that makes you pause before opening the window. The world smelled of wet soil and old memories, and I remember holding the phone, hearing my son's voice trembling with excitement. "Mom," he said, "I have something to tell you. You're going to love this." He paused just long enough for my heart to tighten. "It's Claire," he said. "I'm marrying Claire." For a moment, I couldn't speak. Claire. My Claire. My best friend for more than 20 years. The woman who held my hand when I buried my husband. The woman who helped me raise Matthew when I could barely stand. And now she was to be my daughter-in-law. I remember laughing. It wasn't forced exactly, but it came out softer than I meant. "Well," I said, "life really does enjoy its surprises." But when I hung up, the rain outside sounded different, heavier, almost like it was trying to tell me something I wasn't ready to hear. Before all of this, my world had been quiet. After my husband passed, the house became too big for one person. The laughter that once filled the kitchen faded into the sound of the kettle whistling, the clock ticking, the soft shuffle of my slippers across the wooden floor. Claire was the one who kept me going. She'd drop by with groceries or drag me to the farmer's market on weekends. She was the kind of woman who lit up a room just by walking into it. Not because she was loud or flamboyant, but because she made everyone feel seen. She was also 15 years younger than me, divorced and childless. I used to tease her about dating again, about not giving up on love. She'd laugh and say, "Love has its own timing, May. You, of all people, should know that." We'd sit on my porch with coffee, watching the sky change colors. I trusted her like a sister. I told her things I'd never told anyone, even things I thought I'd buried with my husband. So when she met my son, I didn't think much of it. It was at a charity dinner. I'd invited her along because I thought she needed a night out. Matthew was there to represent his company, standing tall in that charcoal suit that always made him look older than his age. They hit it off immediately. I remember watching them laugh across the table, thinking how wonderful it was to see them both happy. "Wouldn't it be funny," I said to Claire later that night, "if you ended up in the family?" She smiled in that quiet, knowing way. "Funny," she said, "but not impossible." At the time, I thought she was joking. The months that followed were a blur of dinners, family visits, and gentle teasing. My son was smitten. I could hear it in his voice whenever he said her name. Claire seemed cautious at first, maybe even hesitant, but soon enough she was calling me with updates about their relationship like a giddy teenager. "May," she'd say, "I think this could really be something." When Matthew proposed, they invited me over to celebrate. Claire looked radiant in her pale blue dress, her hand resting on his arm like she'd belonged there all along. I told myself I was happy, and for a while I was. But there was a moment, just a flicker, when our eyes met across the room and I saw something in hers. Not joy, not love, something else, something sharper. It passed before I could place it. The wedding was small, intimate. My garden, my home, the same place where we'd shared coffee and secrets for years. I walked her down the path myself. My son was waiting beneath the willow tree, smiling the way his father once did. When they said their vows, my throat tightened. I looked at Claire, this woman who had stood beside me through grief and loneliness, and I thought, maybe this is life's way of giving me back what I lost. After the ceremony, she came to me, kissed my cheek, and whispered, "Thank you, May, for everything." Her perfume, jasmine and cedar, lingered on my skin long after she walked away. At first, living nearby felt natural. Matthew and Claire moved into the guest house behind my property. We shared dinners, laughed over burnt pies, and planned Sunday brunches. She helped me renovate the old porch, brought flowers every week, and called me Mom in that sweet, practiced tone. But gradually, I noticed. Small things. The way she started finishing Matthew's sentences, how she corrected me in front of guests, politely but still. The way she began handling family finances without mentioning it to me. Nothing was overtly cruel, but the energy in the house began to change. I'd find her sitting in my husband's old armchair, sipping from my favorite cup. She'd say things like, "It's good you're finally resting more, May. Let us handle things now."
Us, she said, not you and me. Then one evening, a family dinner took a strange turn. Matthew had stepped out to take a call, and it was just Claire and me at the table. The candles were half burnt, the air smelled of rosemary chicken and red wine. She leaned forward, eyes calm, but cold. "You know, Mallory," she said, "it's interesting how people reinvent themselves after tragedy. You've done that so well." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She tilted her head, smiled faintly. "Oh, just that sometimes the past has a way of catching up. Secrets have a funny way of surfacing, don't they?" My fork paused midway to my mouth. Something about her tone made the room colder. I tried to laugh it off, but my chest tightened. There was only one secret, one I thought no one knew. Not even my husband had known the full truth. I set my fork down, forcing a smile. "I'm not sure I follow." She just smiled wider. "Oh, I think you do." And then, as casually as if she were commenting on the weather, she changed the subject. But that night, I barely slept. I kept replaying her words, her tone, the knowing look in her eyes. Because if she knew, if she truly knew, then everything I'd built could come crashing down. That was the first time I felt fear around Claire. Not anger, not suspicion, fear. And in that moment, lying in the dark while the house creaked and the rain whispered against the windows, I realized something I hadn't before. My best friend was no longer my ally. After that dinner, something shifted between us, quietly, like the slow closing of a door. On the surface, nothing had changed. Claire still came by every morning with her usual brightness, bringing pastries, tidying up, talking about garden plans. But there was a difference in the way she watched me. It wasn't warmth anymore. It was assessment. And I started feeling small in my own home. I'd catch her glancing at the framed photos on my wall, especially the one I always kept in the hallway, the picture of me holding a baby girl. People often assumed it was Matthew when he was little, but it wasn't, and I never corrected them. It was someone else. Someone I'd buried deep in the folds of my past. One morning, I walked into the kitchen and found her standing there, holding that very photo. She looked up, smiling faintly. "She's beautiful," she said. "Your daughter?" My throat went dry. I'd never told her about her, not once, not in all our years of friendship. I forced a small smile. "A family friend's child. That was taken a long time ago." She studied me for a second too long, then nodded slowly, as if humoring me. Funny," she murmured. "You two have the same eyes." I laughed, a brittle sound. "Coincidence." She smiled again, set the frame down, and walked out humming softly, leaving the scent of jasmine behind her. That was the moment I knew she knew. For weeks after, I lived in quiet panic. Every word, every glance, every silence between us felt loaded.
Clara began taking control of the house in subtle ways. She started organizing family events without asking me. She'd tell Matthew what I supposedly said about him, twisting my words just enough to make me sound critical or controlling. One evening, I overheard them arguing on the porch. "Mom's just trying to help," he said. "Help?" Claire's voice was sharp. "She's undermining us. You can't see it because she hides behind that sweet tone, but she wants to keep running your life, even now." My heart ached hearing her say that. I pressed my palm against the wall, listening to my son defend me with less and less conviction. The next morning, he was distant. The final straw came on my birthday. They hosted a dinner, candles, a cake, soft music playing in the background. I tried to ignore the tension, tried to enjoy the evening, but halfway through, Claire stood to make a toast. "To May," she said, her voice ringing with feigned warmth, "a woman who's taught me so much about strength, about family, and about the power of secrets." I looked up sharply. Matthew smiled, oblivious, raising his glass, but I could feel Claire's eyes on me, steady and deliberate. "Here's to the past," she continued, "and to the truth. May it always find its way home." The clinking of glasses sounded like hammers in my ears. I forced a smile, but my hands trembled. After dinner, she lingered as Matthew cleared the table. She leaned in close, her whisper slicing through the quiet. "You should tell him, May, before someone else does." My heart thudded. Tell him what? Her smile was faint, cruel. "You know exactly what." Then she turned and walked away, leaving me standing in the kitchen with my pulse roaring in my ears. That night, I went through the old box under my bed, the one I hadn't opened in years. Inside were a few yellowed photos, some folded letters, and one worn baby blanket. My secret wasn't something evil, but it was something I'd carried like a scar. Before I married my late husband, I'd been a mother once already. I was 22, unmarried, and terrified. The man I loved at the time left when he found out I was pregnant. My family, strict, small town, unforgiving, forced me to give the baby up. I'd named her Grace. I never saw her again. Even after I married, after I had Matthew, I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone. Not my husband, not Claire, not even myself sometimes. It was easier to pretend she'd never existed, until now. Days turned into weeks. I tried to act normal, but the air between us was poisoned. Claire's confidence grew bolder. She began speaking to me like I was a guest in my own house. One morning, I caught her in my study, going through my old photo albums. "What are you doing?" I demanded. She looked up, unbothered. "Oh, I was just organizing things. Matthew wanted to make a family collage for the hallway." Her tone was calm, but I could see the faint smirk at the edge of her lips. "You have no right," I began, but she cut me off. "No right to what, May? To look at family pictures?" Her emphasis on the word family made my stomach twist. I took a step closer. "If you think you can intimidate me..." She laughed, soft but mocking. "Intimidate you? Oh, May, I don't need to do that. You've already done it to yourself. All these years pretending, hiding, it must be exhausting." I froze. Her eyes gleamed. "Does Matthew know? About Grace?" My breath caught in my throat. "How do you..." "Oh, you'd be surprised what people leave lying around," she interrupted smoothly. "Old letters, old photos. The truth has a way of surfacing when you least expect it." I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. Instead, I said quietly, "What do you want from me?" She leaned in close, her perfume thick, her voice low. "Respect. Control. The same thing you've always had, but this time I decide where it goes." Then she smiled, turned, and walked out, leaving me standing amid my own memories, a ghost among my own life. That night, Matthew didn't come home for dinner. He texted to say he was staying at a friend's to clear his head. Claire didn't even try to hide her satisfaction. Men need space sometimes, she said, over tea, stirring sugar with quiet precision, especially when they're confused about who's really telling them the truth. I stared at her, the words bubbling up inside me like boiling water. You've done something, haven't you? She met my gaze, unflinching. I just told him what he deserved to know. And in that moment, I realized she'd told him everything. My son now knew about Grace, but not from me. When Matthew finally came home, it was late. The clock had just crossed midnight, and I was sitting in the dark living room, the glow from a single lamp flickering on the wall. He walked in without saying a word. His eyes were red, not from tears, but from something heavier. Disbelief. I stood up slowly. Matthew. He didn't look at me, just set his keys down and muttered, "You should have told me." The words hung in the air like smoke. Claire shouldn't have. She didn't have to, he snapped, finally looking up. You did. My heart clenched. It wasn't because I didn't want to, I said softly. It was because I couldn't. He laughed bitterly. Couldn't what? Trust your own son? I took a step forward, but he stepped back. That small motion, that flinch, hurt more than any words could. Matthew, please, I whispered. I made a mistake. I was young, scared. You had another child, he interrupted, his voice breaking, and you just erased her, pretended she didn't exist? Tears stung my eyes. I never erased her. I thought about her every single day. He shook his head slowly, his hands on his hips, pacing like a man trying to hold himself together. All those years you told me to be honest, to own up to my choices, you were lying to me the whole time. I was protecting you, I said. From what? The truth? Silence fell, the kind that splits a room clean in half. He finally muttered, Claire told me she found the adoption papers, said you even kept a baby blanket. I saw it. I froze. She showed you that? He nodded, his expression hard. Why keep it hidden, Mom? Why not just tell me? Because shame has a long memory. Because some wounds never stop bleeding. They just scab over quietly, waiting for someone to pick at them. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I whispered, because I was afraid you'd look at me the way you're looking at me right now. The days after that conversation were the loneliest of my life. Matthew moved into the guest house for space. Claire still came by, but her tone had shifted completely. Syrupy sweetness on the surface, quiet triumph underneath. She'd won. I tried reaching out to my son. I cooked his favorite meals, left notes by his door, texted him just to check in. Most went unanswered. Until one evening, I saw him walking up the driveway with Claire. They were laughing, the sound light and intimate. I watched from the window as she slipped her arm around his and leaned close. That was when it hit me. This wasn't about the secret anymore. It was about control. She wanted to replace me. And in a way, she already had. A few nights later, there was a storm, rain hammering against the windows, thunder rolling in the distance. I was upstairs when I heard raised voices from the kitchen. I'm just saying, she needs help, Matt, Claire was saying. She's not herself. Keeping all these lies, it's not healthy. I stood frozen at the landing. Matthew sighed. She's been through a lot. Don't make excuses for her, Claire shot back. If she can lie about something like that, what else has she lied about? She hasn't. Oh, please, Claire interrupted. You think she didn't manipulate you your whole life? Everything she does is guilt dressed up as love. My breath caught in my throat. I'm not having this conversation, Matthew said, frustrated. But Claire pressed on. You need to start setting boundaries. She's toxic, Matt. It's time you stop letting her pull your strings. I stepped down the stairs slowly, my pulse pounding in my ears. Funny, I said quietly, coming from someone who's made a career out of pulling them herself.
They both turned. Claire smiled faintly, not even startled. May, we were just talking about you. So I heard, I said. Seems to be your favorite topic lately. She tilted her head. I'm just trying to help Matthew see things clearly. By poisoning him against his own mother, her tone stayed calm, measured. By showing him the truth, something you've struggled with. Enough, Matthew muttered, rubbing his temples. But the dam had already cracked. No, let's finish this, I said, my voice shaking but firm. You've wanted to hurt me from the moment you realized I wasn't someone you could control. Claire's smile didn't falter. Oh, May, you think everything's about control because you've never learned to let go. Let go? I whispered. You invaded my home, my family, my past, and you have the nerve to call it concern? She shrugged lightly. Someone had to. Why? I demanded. Why are you doing this? For the first time, her mask slipped, just slightly. Because you had everything I didn't, she said, her voice trembling with barely hidden bitterness. A husband who adored you, a son who worshipped you, a perfect little life built on lies, and people still loved you for it. Her words cut deep. And me, she continued, I had to fight for scraps of affection. You were everyone's darling, always so kind, so gentle, so untouchable. I just wanted to see what would happen when the world finally saw the cracks. Matthew looked between us, confused, shaken. Claire, stop. But she didn't know. You don't get to play the victim, May. You're just finally being seen for what you are. Human, flawed, weak. The thunder roared outside, shaking the windows. You don't get to play the victim, May. You're just finally being seen for what you are. Human, flawed, weak. The thunder roared outside, shaking the windows. I looked at her, really looked at her. Beneath the anger, the manipulation, there was something hollow, a loneliness that mirrored my own. You think ruining me will make you whole? I said softly. Her eyes glistened. It'll make things fair. Matthew stood up abruptly. That's enough, both of you. But Claire's eyes stayed on mine, unblinking, and for the first time, I didn't feel afraid of her anymore. I turned to my son. Matthew, I said quietly, I made mistakes. I'll carry them till the day I die. But don't let her convince you that love has to be perfect to be real. He looked torn, caught between loyalty and disillusionment. Mom, I just need time, he whispered. I nodded. Take all you need. Then I walked past them, into the rain. That night, I drove to the old address written on Grace's adoption letter, the one I'd kept hidden for decades. I didn't know what I was expecting. Closure? Forgiveness? But when I reached the house, it was empty. The windows boarded, the garden overgrown. I stood there under the rain, the world spinning quietly around me, realizing that some ghosts never come back. But maybe they don't have to. Maybe it was enough to finally stop hiding from them. People think secrets die when you bury them deep enough. But the truth is, they just learn how to breathe underground. And one day, when you least expect it, they rise again. Not to destroy you, but to remind you that you're still human. It's strange how silence can become its own kind of company. Weeks passed after that stormy night, and I learned to live with quiet again. The house, once filled with laughter, footsteps, and the hum of conversation, felt cavernous now. I'd wake early, make coffee just for one, and sit by the window watching the morning fog roll over the garden. The smell of rain still lingered in the air, like a memory that refused to fade. I started writing letters I never meant to send. To Matthew, to Claire, even to Grace. In one, I wrote, "If secrets are shadows, then maybe confession is light.
I'm learning to live somewhere in between. It was the only way I knew how to keep breathing through words that might never reach anyone. One afternoon, while I was tending to the roses in the yard, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Those used to be Dad's favorite," Matthew said softly. I turned slowly. He stood by the gate, hands in his pockets, a hesitant smile ghosting across his face. For a second, I didn't trust my own eyes. He looked older, not in years, but in spirit, like someone who'd finally seen the world without its filters. "I didn't know you were coming," I said, brushing soil from my gloves. He nodded. "I wasn't sure I should. The air between us felt fragile, like glass. But I stepped closer anyway. "I'm glad you did." He looked down, kicking at the gravel. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened. About you and everything Claire said." My heart tightened. "And?" He sighed. "And I realized I've been angry for all the wrong reasons." I waited. When Claire told me about the adoption, he said, his voice quiet, "I didn't just feel betrayed. I felt small, like maybe I wasn't enough." "Oh, Matthew," I whispered, reaching for his hand. "You were always enough. That's why I tried so hard to protect you, even when it meant hiding parts of myself." He nodded slowly, eyes glistening. "I know that now." We stood there for a long moment, the wind rustling through the trees. Then he said something that both healed and broke me at once. "Claire and I, we're not together anymore." I blinked. What happened? He gave a sad smile. "She couldn't stop fighting ghosts. Even after everything came out, she kept trying to use it, to twist it. It's like she needed to win something that didn't exist." I felt a pang of pity. "She's not evil, Matthew, just lost." He nodded. "Yeah, I think she is." In the weeks that followed, we started rebuilding, slowly, carefully. He'd come by after work, help me fix things around the house, or stay for dinner. Sometimes we talked about Dad. Sometimes we sat in silence. And one evening, out of nowhere, he said, "Tell me about her, about Grace." I froze, the spoon in my hand trembling. He smiled gently, "Only if you want to." So I did. I told him about the girl I'd been at 19, scared, alone, and pressured into choices she didn't understand. I told him about the day I held Grace for the first and last time, how her fingers curled around mine, soft and perfect, and how every birthday since then I baked a cake in silence and whispered her name into the dark. When I finished, Matthew's eyes were wet. "You've carried that by yourself all these years?" he asked. I nodded. "It's what mothers do, isn't it? We carry even when it's too heavy." He reached across the table and took my hand. "You don't have to anymore." Later that night, as I was putting away the dishes, I found one of my old letters tucked between cookbooks. I'd written it weeks before, during the worst of the storm. It said, "Maybe forgiveness isn't something you give once. Maybe it's something you practice, over and over, until it feels like breathing again." I folded it gently, placed it in a box with the others, and felt something inside me finally unclench. A few months later, I visited the adoption agency, the same one from decades ago. The building was newer now, the walls brighter, but the air still smelled faintly of paper and lemon polish. A kind woman at the desk helped me look through the archives. Grace's records were sealed, but she told me something that made me smile through tears. "She's doing well," she said softly. "That's all I can tell you. She's safe. She's happy." That was enough. On the drive home, I rolled down the window and let the air whip through my hair. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was running from something. I was just living. When I got back, Matthew was waiting on the porch. "Long day?" he asked. "Just long enough," I smiled. He nodded, looking thoughtful. "I've been thinking, maybe we could start a new family tradition. Sunday dinners again, like before." The words hit me right in the chest. "I'd like that very much." He grinned. "You cook, I'll bring dessert." Deal. That first Sunday dinner was simple. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and my mother's old gravy recipe. Halfway through the meal, Matthew looked up from his plate and said, "You know, for years I thought family was supposed to look perfect. But now I think maybe it's supposed to feel honest." I smiled. "Honesty's messy, but it's real." He nodded. "Yeah, and I'd take real over perfect any day." We ate in comfortable silence after that. No secrets, no shadows, just warmth. When he left that night, he hugged me longer than usual. And as his car disappeared down the road, I whispered to myself, "We made it through."
Weeks later, I found an envelope on my doorstep. No return address, just my name written in careful handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Mame, I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve it. But I wanted to say I'm sorry. You didn't deserve what I did. You were my friend before you were anything else, and I lost sight of that. Maybe one day we'll both find peace in our own ways. Claire." I stared at the letter for a long time. Then I folded it neatly and placed it in the same box with the others. Not out of bitterness, but closure. Forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion. Sometimes it just means letting go of the story that kept you small. As seasons changed, the garden began to bloom again. And one morning, while trimming the roses, I found a single new bud. Pale pink, delicate, alive. I smiled, knowing that even after the harshest winters, something always grows back. They say the truth will set you free, but they never tell you how much it hurts first. Still, I've learned that even the deepest wounds can heal if you stop hiding from the light. I'm not the woman I was when this began. I'm not trying to be. I'm just me, and that finally feels like enough. When I look back on everything that happened, the secrets, the silence, the betrayals, I realize something I never understood before. Life has a strange way of humbling you. It gives you people you love and then tests you through them. It shows you the truth in the most painful ways possible, not to destroy you, but to strip away everything that isn't real. For years, I thought I could protect my family by hiding the ugliest parts of my past. But the truth? Secrets don't stay buried. They just grow roots, and one day they find their way to the surface. Claire was never meant to destroy me. She was meant to reveal the version of me that needed to stop pretending. And maybe that's what forgiveness really is. Not forgetting, not excusing, but understanding. Understanding why you did what you did, and choosing to move forward anyway. Now, when I sit on my porch and the sun starts to set behind the trees, I think of all the people I've lost and all the versions of myself I've had to let go. And I whisper, thank you. Because even the heartbreaks, maybe especially the heartbreaks, shaped the woman I am now. If you've ever had to face your past, or if someone you trusted used your truth against you, I hope you remember this. Your story isn't ruined. It's just being rewritten, one chapter at a time. Would you have told your secret sooner? Or would you have done what I did? Kept it hidden to protect the ones you love? Tell me in the comments, my friends. And if you've ever survived a storm and come out stronger, this story was for you. Thank you for listening. This was my story. Until next time, take care of your heart.